Perfect.
How is it going, Bears fans? Welcome back to another episode of Beared Down Uncut, the show where we talk everything Bears every day of the week. Today, in episode number 182 of Uncut, I am back reacting to the news that the Bears are receiving multiple trade calls for their superstar pass rusher Robert Quinn. Does a trade make sense? What could they receive for Quinn? I'm going to be answering all these questions for you guys today, so let's get right into it. Before I introduce myself, I would like to say, not a draft video, but still a pretty timely and pressing video. So wanted to get you guys this content first today. If you guys are new to the channel, though, and want more Bears draft coverage and the most comprehensive coverage on the web throughout the 2022-2023 season, do us a favor, wherever you may be listening, drop a like, subscribe, follow, and we're going to be doing our best to bring you guys a new podcast each and every day. I am your host, Chris Maltby. Feels good to be back. A lot going on right now. We are only 2 days out from the NFL draft, so a lot going on with that. Obviously, the Chicago Bulls, it seems like, are going to be eliminated from the playoffs tomorrow, so that's not the greatest. However, the Bears are back in full swing. I mean, heck, this isn't even essentially draft-related news, and we've got a lot to talk about today, so let's hop right into it. Ian Rappaport tweeted out earlier that Robert Quinn was in Chicago today, meeting with the new Bears staff and spending time with new head coach Matt Eberflus, but teams are sniffing around on him for a possible trade, multiple teams that is, and he is one of several veteran names being discussed on the defensive side of the ball. Let's start off by answering this question, or I'll answer this question. Does this news essentially come as a surprise to me? Not at all. Not one bit. When you take a look at the Bears and the way that they've been trending recently, you see them dishing away a lot of big contracts. Ryan Poles is someone who continuously, since the beginning of the NFL draft process, has reiterated, that he wants to build this team through the draft, that he wants to primarily do it around Justin Fields, and he has shown through a lot of his cuts and trades that have already been made that regardless of a player's production, he is going to get rid of old and expensive contracts. The Bears currently are heading into the 2023 season next year with the most cap space in the league. They could free up some more money by getting rid of Quinn. So it begs the possible question, does a trade make sense here? All I know, this news does not surprise me that much. Taking a look at the Bears' strategy thus far, it wouldn't shock me if something happened very soon, but this news overall does not surprise me whatsoever. Also, it's worth noting that Quinn is coming off of the best season in his career and a franchise record-setting year in Chicago where he accumulated 18 and a half sacks. So overall, this news does not surprise me one bit. Should the Bears consider making a trade in this situation? The next question I'm going to be breaking down. I think absolutely. And I would actually personally go as far as to say I would be surprised if Robert Quinn was still on this Bears roster come Friday when the Bears make their first of 2 second-round picks. Taking a look at what the Bears have done so far, taking a look at Quinn's contract, I believe he only has 1 year left in Chicago, perhaps 2, but it's very likely that 2022, if he does suit up and play in Chicago, is going to be his last year on the Bears. So if you can swing him for a multitude of picks, I absolutely think making a move here makes sense. I also think Quinn is at one of his highest possible values right now, coming off of a year where he racked up a ton of tackles. He racked up a ton of tackles for a loss. He racked up a ton of QB hits outside of the sack numbers. So if Robert Quinn is drawing that interest that you're looking for, if the Bears really are receiving multiple calls on him, you would figure, and I tweeted it out earlier, give me just a moment here. If the Bears really are receiving these multiple calls, I feel like they should be playing greedy in a trade situation when it comes to negotiating a deal. Bargaining power is huge in the NFL. The NFL draft is only 48 hours away before we get off and going here. So teams are desperate for talent right before this draft starts. A lot of them have a lot of picks to deal around. So I would pull the move on this trade, but I would only do it on the Bears' terms. So Ryan Poles, if you're somehow listening to this, get for Robert Quinn what you want for Robert Quinn. Otherwise, I think holding on to him does make sense. We'd still have some good veteran presence on the D line. Trading him also makes sense in my mind because of what we could potentially receive for him. And I'll get into that in just a second. But assuming you can get a first, second, third round pick, maybe, or excuse me, a second would be a stretch. I don't know why I said first, but second, third round pick, maybe 2 picks with a third and a fifth rounder. It gives the Bears an option if they want to trade up late into the first round using one of the second rounders that they already have. So if draft picks are very valuable in my eyes, I think making a deal here most definitely makes sense. And I think Chicago in this case should go ahead and do it. Let's finally get into the last question that I'm going to be answering here. What specifically could the Chicago Bears end up receiving realistically for Robert Quinn? Excuse me. I recently spoke about some day 2 picks. I do believe that a third round pick is very likely in this scenario. Maybe if a team's desperate enough, if you can use that bargaining power, if you're Ryan Poles, you could potentially get a team to bite on giving a second round pick. I don't think it's likely. One other reason I think Quinn should be traded is because he's going on 32 years old. So I don't think any team will trade that much for a player of that age, unless it's someone of Khalil Mack caliber, like we saw with the deal with the Los Angeles Chargers just a few months ago. But I think likely the Bears could get a third rounder, potentially add on a fourth or a fifth rounder as well. Quinn is coming off of a great season where he finally got healthy. As much as I would love for him to stay in Chicago, it really does open a lot of doors for a team that, as much as we don't want to admit it, is going through most definitely a bit of a rebuild in Chicago and trying to build around their franchise quarterback, or at least who they believe is their franchise quarterback. So I would say, realistically, taking a look at what Chicago would receive, I think a third and a fifth is something that could be likely, maybe a third and a fourth, maybe even if one team is desperate enough, somehow a second round pick. But I would probably even do it for solely a third round pick or solely a fourth round pick. Anything in those first 2 days helps Chicago, in my opinion. That'll pretty much do it for this one, though. Sorry for no co-hosts today. It resulted in a little bit of a shorter podcast, but hopefully an easier listen for all of you who are tuning in. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode number 182 of Uncut. We're going to be back with draft content all the way up until Friday, trying to post a podcast each and every day. If you haven't already done so, wherever you may be listening, drop a like, subscribe, follow, leave us a 5-star rating. We're trying to bring you guys the most comprehensive Bears coverage on the web throughout the entirety of draft season and the entirety of training camp and the entirety of the 2022-2023 regular season. If you want more content from us outside of the podcast, do me a favor, head over to our website, beardown.com, wherever you are listening. The link will be down in the description. We are starting to post articles on our website once again, talking about Bears draft and everything below the sun in regards to this team. So head over to our website for more content from us. There is a team of a bunch of very hardworking people that are putting in work for us over on our website. If you would like sneak peeks of guests that we're going to have on the show, see what's going on with us outside of the podcast, and just see more Bears content, keep an eye on what we're up to. You can follow the podcast on social media, both on Instagram and Twitter at Beared Down. The links to those are also in the description. And finally, down in the description, you can find the links to my personal social media pages, as well as that of all of my co-hosts and the rest of our great team are on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. It's another great way to interact with all of us, and on all of our social media platforms, you can see all of our thoughts on all things Bears, the National Football League, and the entirety of Chicago sports. So feels good to get another one of these down. I love this consistent grind that we have been doing recently. You guys have been showing some incredible support. I don't know if I have really much else to say. The White Sox are on quite the losing streak. The Cubs can't really seem to find a way to put it together. The Bulls, I got to give kudos to the Bulls, even though they are going to go out in this first round. It seems it was a heck of a season watching them. I had a lot of fun. DeMar DeRozan was mocked as the worst free agent offseason signing, and ended up being easily a top 10 player in the NBA this year, in my opinion. So it was a lot of fun watching the Bulls play. I am just So anxious and so giddy for this draft as we continue to move closer. And maybe, just maybe, if the Bears can get some more picks, they will be able to maybe move up into the first round or maybe select some more fine talent down there on days 2 and 3. So moving on from Robert Quinn, definitely an interesting option that is on the table. Guys, it's been a pleasure to be your host. Once again, my name is Chris Maltby, and Bears fans, as always, do us a favor and stay safe and bear down. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.